Welcome to a brand new season of TVGP's Critical Misses. I'm your host, Boston, and joining me as always is Moonpier.
Hello.
And we're here for Moonpier's Choice, a new brand we're
Yeah.
starting.
My Moon PS choice of 2025.
5. you, this is how our year's going so far, guys.
Uh-huh.
Yep. So the Moon's Choice here is the Mad Max movies. We're going to watch 5 of them in our 5-movie
I hope you're looking
quadrilogy,
forward to,
like we always do.
the next season in March or whatever it is.
Right, exactly. So as we're gonna do, we're gonna start with the first movie here, Mad Max from 1979.
Uh-huh.
Start at the beginning, where all good stories start. Probably
At the beginning of the road, one might say.
that's.
Get
Yep,
ready, baby.
you got it.
Get ready. There's gonna be a lot of these.
I got a million of them. So we were talking on, I think it was the Critical Misses production meeting, which I should probably do a plug here for patreon.com/E1M1.
The ones and numbers.
At the $5 tier or higher, you get exclusive access to the uncensored production meeting, where we talk about sort of how we're deciding what we're going to do. We talk a lot about kind of our goals and our organizational needs going into 2025, and we talk about some secret seasons we've been holding close to the vest here a little bit and unveiling those. So go check that out. That episode is always really great. That one is, I think, almost an hour of us just sitting around shooting the poop. So enjoy
And the first one also with no psychological damage or no
True.
hard left turn.
That's
or,
true.
That's true. J-turn, as the driving terminology might need to be.
That's right. That's right. God, I'm gonna die. Anyways, we're here for Mad Max. I mentioned during the production meeting that I feel like the Mad Max movies are probably going to be the ones that I have, as we get closer to sort of modern times, I've probably seen more and more, especially of Fury Road. But the earlier films, I've probably seen less and maybe absorbed less of these movies, other than like one of them, Thunderdome was on TBS on a Saturday afternoon or something, and I was home, like that sort of. But I haven't gone out to seek these movies out specifically, largely because we have always talked about doing these movies as part of this show.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is really interesting. Like, okay, so as an overview, so I'm going to do it just as an overview here.
Okay.
Mad Max 1, the one we're watching.
Yep.
And this will contain minor spoilers for production things going forwards. Mad Max 1 was an independent movie produced on like a budget of like 200 grand.
Okay.
It's a really low budget movie. I don't know the exact number. Don't at me. I know I've got too many franchises I'm a fan of to know that number off the top of my head.
It looks like it's around 400,000 Australian dollars.
There you go. So about 200 grand, basically.
Right.
What do you know? Let's start with production people.
Okay. Yeah, I know, famously directed by George Miller.
That was the key question I was going to ask.
Right.
We know the cover star for this movie, which let's just get this conversation out the way right at the top of the episode. Famously problematic leading Hollywood man here.
Right. Mel Gibson in the starring role here. Probably the less... We don't need to go down the laundry list of...
Yeah,
we've
covered some we've covered some wrong-uns on the show, and we basically there's problems here too. We'll say, if you want to research it, go ahead and research it. We are going to do our best to admire it as a whole, rather than focus on the rights and wrongs of one particular person.
Right. But in '79, I think
in '79,
fairly unknown actor, right?
Nobody knows who this guy is, and like, I'm pretty sure he's Australian.
Okay.
despite what Hollywood would like you to believe, he's not actually an American.
He was born in America, which I didn't.
He was he was born in America but grew up in Australia, I believe, and then moved back to America.
I was looking here because I had to laugh because his Wikipedia article is very long. Again, we're not getting into it, but I was scrolling for a considerable amount of time. Yeah.
But like, it's one of those situations where he moved to Australia, I believe, when he was very, very young, and then ended up moving back to America when he made a big name for himself, mostly on the backs of these movies.
Okay. This is the second movie he was in after 1977's Summer City, which I've never heard of.
Yeah, same.
And this was well before Lethal Weapon, which I feel like in the States, for most people, that was probably his big breakout role of like, oh yeah,
Yes.
he's the dude from Lethal Weapon, and then kind of his popularity exploded from there.
Correct, and which is 1987 is Lethal Weapon, to give you an idea. So this is a good 8 years before that, approximately. What do you know about George Miller?
He's had. I know the thing that people always talk about is, oh, he made the Mad Max movies and Happy Feet. So, he's got range, and I was like, okay, sure. I mean, at some point, like we talked about in the last episode, at some point you gotta pay the mortgage, and that's totally fine. And maybe they were passion projects. I have no idea, but for me, looking outside in, it has always seemed, I think, especially when we get to lawsuit era of Mad Max, which we'll talk about in future episodes, this has always seemed like the thing that's been the closest to his heart. Like, this is his project, his baby, has always been the Mad Max stuff. Sort of as it goes through ups and downs or whatever, Mad Max seems to be like, yeah, this is my legacy, and appearing in Death Stranding 2, but that's a separate podcast.
Yes, we'll cover that on the main show when we get there eventually.
That's right.
I guess.
Yeah.
Also responsible for Babe and Pig in the City, by the way. Just if you wanted the complete opposite ends of the spectrum.
Man, sometimes you gotta fund a lawsuit, and sometimes you gotta make a pig movie.
So he produced and wrote Babe. He didn't direct, but he produced, wrote, and directed Pig in the City, which is the Oscar winner one, I believe, as well, just to make things even more interesting.
Of course it was. Okay.
So yes, George Miller, famously, apocalyptic nightmare movies, cute animals.
Right.
Like, that's the things he seems to be known for. Do you know what he did before directing movies?
No, I don't.
He was a doctor.
Oh, okay.
So, as is with everything, you have an idea, you put it on paper. The second something starts to be developed, that idea changes. We've seen it ourselves with the show. We've seen it ourselves with side projects that we do and things like that. You think this will be a great idea, let's execute it exactly as this idea goes. And then literally you take the first step and that idea immediately changes to 15 different things because of whatever.
Right.
This movie was originally intended to be an awakening for people as to the horrors of being an ER doctor on night shift.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
In Australia. Where, and listen, Aussies, I love you guys. I genuinely do. Very much like the British, you all have a drinking and driving problem. So the original thought for this movie was to be a movie about a doctor out there in an ambulance, night calls, car crashes, dealing with the horrors of that thing.
Right.
And then you take the first step and it takes a hard swing left. Go check out any of our production meetings except for this one.
That's right. Ironically.
Yes. So that's where this all originated from. And
interesting.
Pretty sure he self-funded it. He created a production company, self-funded it, and then came up with a bunch of ideas and put them onto a movie. Now, what do you know about the first movie, Boston?
God. I feel like this is probably the one that I know the least about.
hmm
Um,
If you are not a diehard Mad Max fan, a lot of people don't know there is a Mad Max 1.
right, because I feel like the ones you hear in passing the most are usually Thunderdome, just for like entering Thunderdome.
hmm
But I'm curious to see with this one how much, because I think via osmosis, especially with how surprisingly popular the Mad Max open world video game was,
It's so
how
good, dude.
how much of that I've absorbed via osmosis of like it's the post-apocalyptic wasteland. Water is scarce. Cars are kind of this big deal in some fashion. Cars is kind of identity
hmm
here, and how much of that. But like I feel like those are kind of the tent poles I know from the movie of like no water, big old desert, yay cars. That's it.
Okay. And so basically cut that and put it into the next 2 episodes or 3 episodes or four
Right.
episodes as like, what do you know about the franchise?
Yeah, exactly.
Um, this movie. Okay, let's just get this out the way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to mention it now because I know you'll forget by the time we get to the final.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives me a chance to revisit it too. As of this moment, my Mad Max ranking
Mm-hmm.
is Fury Road,
Okay.
1,
Mm-hmm.
2, Furiosa, Thunderdome.
Okay, and that's from best to worst.
Best to worst,
Okay.
yes. I have a soft spot for this movie. I
Mm.
genuinely have a soft spot for this movie because this is the little brother that got forgotten along the way.
Mm. And it's
Because
like the scrappy one.
yes, it's the
Mm-hmm.
scrappy one. It's the self-funded. Nobody knows what this is. The thing you're talking about, where like the movie was on in a night, especially in America, from
Mm-hmm.
what I understand, is 2, The Road Warrior.
Oh, okay.
That thing got shown everywhere on like cable, on in satellite television in
Right,
England.
because they retitled it in the States originally as The Road Warrior instead of the Mad Max 2. I
Yes,
forgot about
so
that.
I believe in the rest of the world it was Mad Max 2 : The Road Warrior,
Mm-hmm.
and in the States it was just Mad Max: The Road Warrior.
Right.
So that one got shown everywhere on late night television. That's the movie that people were like, wait, what's this?
Mm-hmm.
What's this movie?
Right.
Hold on a minute. Maybe I should pay more attention to this movie situation. I have a real soft spot for this one.
Sure.
I will warn you and listeners going in right now. Mad Max going forwards after this one, it's dark,
Mm.
it's apocalyptic, it's troublesome, it has its issues, and it has its questions. This is dark, dark. Trigger warning, dark,
Oh,
dark.
okay. So it's a more brutal movie than a lot of the other ones.
I think this is the most brutal of them all, yes.
Okay.
And it's the most brutal for a couple of different reasons. Obviously, I'm not going to do any spoiler warnings. If you have a website that you use to look at content to see if it might trigger you, and you're planning on watching this movie along with us,
Mm.
and I don't use trigger as a derogative, please
No,
don't
no, yeah.
misunderstand that. If you have things that do that, and you want to watch this movie with us, check it first.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't just jump into this one blind, because this one it's not, it's got some moments in it that I still struggle to watch to this day, and I adore this movie. As Boston's eyes scan all over his screen.
So I was trying to. was remembering the IMDb. I thought they had a like.
The parental safety unit
Yeah,
thing.
but like the parents guide isn't what I'm really looking for, and that's what I was just scrolling through of like, you know, there's a kissing scene for a couple seconds, and it's just like, no, I'm really looking for like the content warnings, and IMDb doesn't really have Like it's fine,
Uh-huh.
but it wasn't really what I'm looking for. A couple books I've been reading lately have had content warnings in front of them. I'm like, this deals with
Great.
themes of X, Y, and Z, and A, B, and C. It's like, okay, perfect. That's great. Like I know now whether or not this is going to be something I'm interested in reading or not. And I couldn't remember if IMDb. It doesn't look like they have a really good like this deals with topics of, and then a short list. So
Yes. So at the time it's 1979, this was released as a 16 plus, which doesn't exist anymore.
okay,
Um, oh, yeah, it's dark. I'm reiterating this a lot because it's it has a moment which a couple of moments which I think are character defining for the lead character, but also at the same time, the indie nature of this is. There's a scene. Less spoiler warnings. See if you can spot it, Boston. There's a scene where a stuntman breaks both of his legs in this movie.
jeez, okay,
You'll spot it.
Yeah.
You'll spot it immediately.
mm-hmm.
And he was fine. He's fine. He went on to continue his career and have a great time. But it's indie as indie goes, which means sometimes you get the indie darkness in there too.
Sure.
I would like to say though, I am very disappointed that you went with like the live action poster here and not the 1979 incredible artwork poster.
It is really hard to find a lot of posters for a lot of stuff that isn't AI generated anymore. Grumble, grumble, grumble,
Oh,
grumble.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so a lot of it is like Mad Max movie poster, and it's just this like bleh of just crap. So
Oh, great.
we make do with what we got.
Okay, I mean that's definitely fair enough.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. So, other than that, I can't think of anything else really that
Yeah.
you potentially should know. Or, I mean, ideally, I want you to go into this as blind as possible.
And that's part of the reason why I'm excited for this series, because I feel like I've heard some stuff about Furiosa, and a lot of it I've tried to insulate myself from for spoiler reasons. I've heard a lot of stuff about Fury Road, just because of how huge it was when it released. But the first three movies I have heard so little of, other than, occasionally you'll hear someone be like, I love these movies. Yes, there are three of them. Yes, The Road Warrior is one of them. You should go check them out. They're also from the 70s and the 80s, so keep that in mind.
Yes.
But like other than that, I feel like I know so little about these movies that I'm sure as I watch them, I'll probably see the hallmarks of the kind of influence rippling out towards the rest of the industry as we go through.
I think you'll definitely see that with the second one.
Mhm.
With the second one, because it's not like, I mean, you tell me, what are the apocalyptic films that you can think of before 2000?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's a handful here and there, but like when 2000 landed, I feel like there were a lot of just like, what if the world was destroyed in a world? It's just like,
Exactly.
yeah.
But like, there isn't a whole lot that broaches that subject.
Yeah.
There isn't a whole lot that's like, yo, this world is going down. What is it? DTD? Down the drain is the medical term for it.
Okay.
Oh no, CTD, circling the drain.
Right.
This world is CTD, and this is what we're looking forwards to.
What would the world look like if Superman was evil? Oh, in a world where Superman...
So one of the things I will say, and I'm going to get this off the top, I don't think George Miller is a great writer.
Okay.
I don't think he is. One of the best parts about Fury Road is it's basically like 50 lines of dialogue throughout the entire movie. Like, that's incredible. He said himself he views Fury Road as a silent movie, which is hence the black and chrome edition.
Right.
I do not think he writes dialogue well.
Okay.
The thing that I think he does fantastically is world building visually. He is the show don't tell director.
Oh, okay.
And I think this movie is a prime example of there's so many little touches in there that I'm not expecting you to catch them, because you won't, because it'll be the first time you've seen them. I've seen this movie 25,000 times approximately, so
Right.
there's a lot in there that I catch that a lot of people miss. But I'm very curious to see how you feel about his writing style versus his visual storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
And let's just say there is a child of a director of the 70s and the 80s when the first trilogy comes out.
Mm-hmm.
These have problems with women. We'll get that out the
Yeah.
way.
I
Right
sort of,
here too.
to me, that's almost a given at this
Yes.
point of just like, yeah, times are pretty different. We're not gonna. It's another thing we're really not gonna like hammer home too much of. Like, we really
Yes.
generally don't agree with a lot of the portrayals of anybody who isn't like a straight white dude in a lot of this stuff. There's stuff that is handles it fine in the 70s, but it's always sort of my assumption that's gonna be like, yeah, there's gonna be stuff that in there that's sort of not okay anymore.
Yes.
Yeah.
And my final thing before I'm assuming we shut this down and take a ride.
That's right.
See, I'm full of them.
Dying.
Absolutely full of them. I'm bubbling at the brim with all of the puns in my head. The very first trivia note on IMDb, to give you an idea of how indie this movie is, most of the extras were paid in beer.
Okay, perfect. I love it. Scrappy.
Australian.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. All right. Any final thoughts here before we hit the road?
No.
All right. On that horribly punny note, let's go watch the film.
Yep.
We're back. Hello.
Hello.
From the
Bonjour.
highways being haunted by Knight
The
Rider.
licorice roads, one might say.
That's right.
Let's get it out of the way right at the top. This movie stars Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson is problematic.
Yeah.
Go read some of the problems.
Yeah.
We are not going to discuss the pros and cons of that. Spoiler alert, they're all cons.
Yeah.
We have to view this in kind of the light we view it in.
Yeah. We do have to talk about one of the best performances of this movie, which is Knight Rider.
Oh yeah.
One of the like chewingest, screamingest, unhinged, driving 150 miles an hour, like white knuckle. It's so good. Like this movie has an incredible first 10 minutes. You get cool car chases, you get a dude getting his throat cut out, you get a Knight Rider exploding after screaming for about 8.5 of those 10 minutes, and cars moving faster than they should, and jumping and racing more than they should. This is such a 1970s movie of like, all right, is anyone here to watch us do anything dangerous? Nope. All right, shoot it. Like,
in this case, it's also, hey, is there anyone around to notice we don't have the permits to film on these roads?
That's right. Look,
Okay,
nobody's around. Just shoot it real quick. It's fine. Yeah, man, like it's so funny because this movie, the car chases in this movie reminded me a lot of on the DVD commentary for Super Troopers. They were talking about shooting. There's like one car moving quickly in that movie, and they shot it and said like, man, this just looks slow. Like, why do all these movies from the 70s and 80s look so fast? Like, what are they doing differently?
They ramped the frames up. That's why.
They called someone up and they're like, yeah, just cut out half of the frames and it looks like they're zooming like crazy. And they're just like, oh. I think this movie, though, they're just driving real fast.
There's like, I was trying to pay attention to it this time. I think there's like 4, maybe 5 shots where I can tell they've ramped the frames up to make the cars seem like they're going faster.
Yep.
But there's a lot of shots where they're just driving real fast, dude.
Like in this intro part where Max's car is kind of like kissing the back of
Uh-huh.
Knight Rider's car, and they're fitting together. I'm like, some of those shots look like they're going slow.
Look a little dangerous.
Some of them look like they're going pretty fast. Oh,
Uh-huh.
but
Yeah,
like
weird
it
how that
pays
works.
off though, because I think this movie lands with such a strong foot forward at the beginning of just like, yeah,
Uh-huh.
these are car and motorcycle gangs that rule these highways in near future Australia. And it's not because they're like driving slow and like giving you the middle finger. It's because they're driving super fast and they're using
Uh-huh.
weapons and guns. Like they're attacking people and driving fast. Like it's not, you don't have to
Yup.
suspend disbelief about like, well, maybe we shouldn't go on this highway because, Toe Cutter's gang is here. It's like, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I do love the fact that there are just so. I said in part one of this, I think George Miller is an astounding visual storyteller.
Yeah.
I love the markings, the spray paints on the road with like the skull symbols when you're going out of like basically where MFP would normally operate.
Yep, it's so
MFP, Main Force Patrol, which is the cops in this movie, by the way, folks.
Which also, can
Go
we
watch
say,
this movie if you haven't.
Mad
by the
Max
way.
is a cop?
Yeah, dude.
Like I get that that's the main drive of this movie, but like I started watching this movie and they're like, "Yeah, we got a cop killer." I was like, "Yeah, that's Max himself."
You thought it
They're
was
like,
Max.
"Yeah," and I'm like, "Haha, that's Max. He's getting those cops." ACAB in 1979. Let's go. And then like 2 minutes later, they're like, "Max on the force. Let's go get him." And I'm like, "But what?" Okay.
Uh-huh.
I
So that's
That's the thrust of
also
the movie, but
yeah, it's also one of my favorite parts about the character arc of Max in this movie. But yeah, it's like, yo, there is areas of population where people live and it's kind of safe. Kind of safe.
safe-ish.
Safer, one might say.
Right.
But yeah, like when you get into the middle of the boondocks, ain't no one there to help you. Ain't no one there
Right.
to stop these crazy nomads, as they are described at one point,
Right.
from taking care of you in their own particular ways. I also love the fact that all of the cops, except for Max and Goose, well, Goose in his own particular way, are really dumb idiots.
Even like one of my favorite characters in this, Fifi, the
Fifi, the chief,
yeah,
police
the
chief,
chief,
yes,
the police commissioner. Even
who
he,
never has a shirt on ever.
he's a big dude, man.
Yeah,
Um,
man.
Even he is sort of like kind of a chicken about like, well, why would we go out there? We'll just have Max do it. Let's get him a cool new car. Max will do it. It's just like, yeah.
Yeah. So you probably wouldn't have noticed it your first time through. I didn't until I listened to Mad Max Minute. The radio is so important in this movie, and I'm not just talking about like when they're calling Goose and he's ignoring
Right.
it because he's busy being distracted by something else.
Right.
We'll talk about Goose, I'm sure. Another Goose who dies. Spoiler alert. But the fact that it's consistently in the background, any scene with cops in it or
Yeah.
near a radio, there's like, oh yeah, code 4, code 5, sector 10, code 4, sector 3, code 3, sector 9, code 7. It's constantly going. Yo, there's bad things happening almost every minute of every single day.
And we talked in the first part about George Miller's background as working in the like an emergency
rooms.
hospital situation, and I wonder how much of that was influenced by that, of just this like constant buzz of the radio and people talking and things moving and happening. Like there's always just this low hum of the radio constantly going.
Bad things are constantly happening.
Right,
Congratulations, you're the one who has to deal with it kind of situation.
Right.
Yeah, I mean that's a very good point. But yeah, like and it's minor world building in that, but it also talks about like the radio talks about food supply chests and how you're only allowed to take your allotted amount, and if you don't, it's a crime. Even the cops are allowed like There's hospital vouchers are now available again. Is one of the things that's said at some point. It's like,
Oh man, that's a hell of a line, man.
how messed up is this world? Like,
Right.
it's going downhill real quick. And by the way, Max has a wife and kid, Boston.
When I saw that kid on screen in that very cool house that they live in, I was just like, oh no, it's a movie in the 70s. Oh no.
It's a
Oh.
movie in the 70s, and I already warned you this is probably the darkest one of them all.
Uh-huh. Yep. Oh boy, that's okay. See where this film's going. Sure, sure, sure.
Uh-huh.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's the anti-video game rule.
Right.
Whereas in video games, you don't touch the kids, ever, period.
Yeah, you just kill whatever adorable looking animal you have with you as your
Exactly.
companion.
Uh-huh. This is the direct opposite, where it's like, spoiler alert, you kill the kid in the end.
That's right.
Um,
That's right.
so there's so much I want to talk about, and I know I'm not going to be able to cover it all because we don't have 6 hours.
Well then, and
Talking about Knight Rider, there's a really great, like, one of the things I love about the opening 10 minutes of this movie that you mentioned already. So it shows the idiot cops being idiots, and somehow Big Bopper keeping that car running is hilarious to me every time.
the one dude looking down the scope of a rifle
on the couple
at an adult couple, and I'm just like, oh, okay, it like that. That shot is so good of just like, okay, that's the type of scumbag idiots these dudes are. All right, I get it.
And it makes you immediately think, like, if you building on the rest of the world building, how many of these people are cops just because they get to do what they want out there on the road?
Yeah, exactly.
And also the fringe benefits that they get from, like, having extra food supplies and having extra availability to go to the hospital and things like that. But it's this crazy chase. It's real, spoiler, real stunts, real car crashes, real everything. That blue van that gets hit on the tail end sure spins around a lot for a car that just got demolished.
Yep.
But there's a great cut moment where I think it's not Big Bopper, it's March Hare who's in the other car. They refer to Knight Rider as a Raven psychotic or a terminal psychotic.
Yes.
And it match cuts the exact same shot to the car that he's stolen with him in the front seat, just screaming.
Yes.
Just screaming at the top of his lungs.
It's so good.
It's such a great match cut. Like, it's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
And you only see tiny bits of Max. You see some boots.
Yeah, or you see like the behind, like over the shoulder behind him, a little bit of hair, like the his jacket, maybe a lot more of the car, more than
which
him.
is brand spanking new from the looks of it. Like, how good of a driver is he in this world to have a car that does not look like it's been totally demolished?
Right, and he hasn't even gotten the bribe car either.
Yes, but yeah, like, Goose gets called on the radio because he's in front of them, and then he's too busy telling gross stories in the diner to pay attention to his radio.
Yep.
I like his helmet though, like the faceplate guard, and then he pulls the thing down.
Yep.
And I will admit he has one of my favorite lines in this movie where the big accident happens with the blue van, and then the caravan happens, mobile home if you're American, and he puts it down so he doesn't go into a full-on car crash. He deliberately puts his bike down so he doesn't literally head-on collide with the other car. He stops directly in front of it, and the driver's like, "What's going on?" He's like, "I don't know, mate. I just got here myself." It's such a good line.
Yep. Yeah.
And then he radios Max, and then the dichotomy of really fast chase, big crashes, everything going on, and then Max is on the radio. He's slow, he's steady, he's composed, and then when you see him pulling away, he just pulls away like he's driving on a Sunday to church.
Yeah,
like
he's not
slow,
like screech.
Yeah. Everybody else is pulling wheelies. There's so many tire squeals in this movie. But he's just like, no, I'm just gonna cruise on down and kick a right and then slowly go away. And then he plays chicken with Knight Rider.
Yeah, and it's It's interesting to see Knight Rider change too as soon as he realizes that there is an officer behind him that can actually keep up with him. And he's like, "Oh no, this
So
is probably the end."
I think that someone asked me on this viewing, why does he suddenly change? Why does he suddenly start losing his thing? And it's like the way I explained it, the way I view it is he's on the radio telling all the cops how he's there to deal with the unroadworthy.
Mm-hmm.
He is the master of the roads. He is there to deal with anybody who's not as good as him.
Yeah.
And he plays chicken with a cop and he blinks.
Right.
And he in his own mind, he's not roadworthy anymore.
That's right. He's lost the mojo.
The game of the chicken.
Yep.
And then immediately after that, you've got Max in his X8 Ford Falcon, by the way, just so you know, coming up behind him and doing the little kisses. And he doesn't actually run him off the road.
No.
He never really does that until the very end of the movie. All he does is he puts the pressure on. He's playing psychological games with these people where he's like, "Oh, you're so big and so bad. Let me just kiss the back of your car."
That's right. That's how good my control is. Tap, tap, tap.
Yeah, and he doesn't ram him. He doesn't think out. He just makes him lose his cool.
Yeah.
And then he crashes into a giant fuel tanker thing.
Right. Yeah,
it's really good.
It's a great intro for this movie, and this movie's a tight 90 minutes, and that's 10 minutes of it for this car chase intro. And it's like, you know what? Good job. Like you made a hell of an intro for this movie. You're putting your best foot forward.
Oh, I love the intros of this movie. And again, shout out to the color of the cars. I love the bright yellow with the dark blue and the red stripes. The color design is absolutely fantastic.
Yep.
Low budget movie question, Boston. Who was the only person who got real leathers for this movie?
Ooh. I feel like the answer would obviously be Max, but I feel like this might be a trick question.
It's no Max.
Maybe Goose? He's like the only other guy.
Goose is the only one who got real leathers because he was also riding a motorbike a lot. So if he went down, he needed the leathers.
Gotcha.
Everyone else was in vinyl, squeaky vinyl. So all of the serious shots where you see them walking, they're actually just going
That's incredible.
As they were all dressed in vinyl instead of leather.
It's really interesting that you talked in both this part and the first part of our episode here, saying that George Miller is kind of like the world building and action and stunts and all that is really solid, but the writing kind of falls to the wayside a little bit. Not that it's bad, but it's certainly not the strongest part of it. And that's how I kind of felt for the majority of the movie. There's some funny stuff between like Max and Fifi. There's some
really heartfelt stuff between Jesse and Max.
Yeah, some really
crazy about you moment is really well done.
Yeah, and there's like a little bit of chemistry there. Like Mel Gibson is not a great actor in this movie, probably because he's like 12 in this film.
Like his first major role.
Yeah, he is really young. So like you kind of can't hold that against him. And also, like we talked about before, they made this movie for like almost no money. So like I didn't come in having high expectations. But I think it's interesting that so much of this movie, the action is really solid, and it's really well shot, and it's really well edited and really well directed. But from a storyline perspective, it's kind of not it's kind of treading familiar ground, which is familiar here in 2025, maybe not necessarily 79. But a lot of it is like, okay, we're kind of seeing where this is going by this point.
It's surprisingly slow for a movie that is 90 minutes. Like I think the first 10 minutes, like you said, and the last like 15 minutes, they're blink and you miss it time frames.
Yep.
But that hour in the middle is just like, it feels slow, and it felt slower to me this time. And I think that's both a good thing and a bad thing, because like, spoiler alert, in the future there ain't no slow moments.
Right.
Like, we don't have another one of these, maybe.
Well, and
in the books.
It's interesting, I think, because they in the film they try to go out of their way to kind of juxtapose what Max is going through and his concern for his family, and then his concern for, like, Toe Cutter and his gang are coming for me and my family, and you guys aren't doing anything about it, and you just seem to, like, keep, like, shoving it off to me, being like, well, Max will figure it out, so don't even worry. Here, he has a brand new fancy car, don't worry about it.
Yeah, we literally find out that he's trying to quit.
Right. And has tried to quit a number of times. And even Fifi's like, oh, yeah, another one again? And Max is like, not again. He's like, oh, like, for real this time. Okay.
Yeah. And even that scene, he ends with, like, just take a vacation. I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
if you still want to quit, that's fine. About it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, like, you juxtapose that between, like, Max kind of losing faith in the Force overall, and then once he leaves, he and his wife and child just kind of wandering in this obnoxiously large red van of theirs, and just kind of, like, having adventures as Toe Cutter kind of continues to muscle into more
terrorize
and more
the area.
Yeah, like, it's really interesting. It's also, watching this is sort of interesting because we'll get to Fury Road and the kind of, like, overwhelming cultural osmosis for that movie when we talk about it in a couple
Fury
of
Road
episodes.
is like it has a meme shot in it. It has literally a
There's
shot
like
that
five or six meme shots in it. Like, it's a lot. So, but, like, what's interesting about this is I can feel a little bit of the threads of Fury Road stretching back to here. Like, you see a little bit of the costuming here. Like, you can see some of the, like, the steel kind of face coverings, like we were talking about before. Like, that feels like some of the stuff you see in Fury Road. Toe Cutter looks a lot like the main bad guy, what I assume is the main bad guy, like a Morton Joe or whatever his name is.
Yes, Morton Joe is the main bad guy of Fury Road. And I wasn't going to bring this up until then. It's the same actor.
Oh, I felt it. I could tell. I could tell by the... Weirdly enough, I could tell by the hair.
His presence.
Because, like, it's the presence, and it's, like, the big, like, kind of...
The big bouffant hairstyle that comes out and swoops backwards.
Yeah, and it was interesting watching this, because I'm like, man, that looks like the Fury Road dude. If it isn't, then, like, the stuff that you're building here...
It's a different character, but it's the same actor.
Sure. But, like, you can see all of this kind of... The, like, Mad Max stuff that I feel like I've seen over my life. You can feel a lot of that being built in this movie, of, like, them kind of terrorizing the kind of scarcity of goods and
resources,
and resources. Like, you can see all of
they're
that.
At the beach looking for fuel,
right?
Like, that should tell you everything you need to know.
And what's interesting too is, like, there's some really great shots on the beach. There's an incredible shot, I think, where the camera's kind of looking right down a pier, and there's, like, a giant sign right in front of it. But you kind of have the other end of it where, you know, you're on the beach or in the beach community. You're kind of in Toe Cutter's region, his stomping grounds. But then when Max and what's her name? Jessie, thank you. When they are in that forest area, like,
and Sprug, by the way, Sprug is the actual name of the child. They used a real Australian slang for child to call their child child.
Boy. Interesting. But, like, that area is really pretty and really well shot, and they do a lot of really interesting things when they're framing her running through, or, like, sort of going through the trees, and some really interesting framing shots there that I think are... It's interesting to see the kind of back and forth juxtaposition in this film of, like, when I think of Mad Max, I think of Fury Road, the gifs you always see of just, like, desert, and that is it, and that's all you got. Yep. But I liked that
he lives on an ocean. Like, his house is on the ocean. Right.
And you have, like, this beautiful wooded area with the houses in there. You have this pretty standard looking kind of beach area. Like, you have some really interesting stuff. But then when you get to the stretches of highway where it's just desolate, I think that makes it land a little bit harder, of just, like, Here is miles and miles of just blacktop with nothing.
Yeah. How it's very Australian, one might
Right,
say.
right, and I think that
And
works.
also, to be honest, probably very American. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm sure if you take the highway across the middle of the states,
yeah.
I'm sure it will be very similar feeling where it's just like, look, this is just a straight line for 7,000 miles.
When
And
I took my trip across, my wife and I took a trip across the country to come out here when I moved out to California. We took the 40, and it just cuts across the entire country as just a straight shot, state after state, thousands of miles after thousands of miles, and it looked very similar. Of just like a lot of times there's a bunch of farms, a lot of times it's just you can see the curvature of the earth because there's just nothing. Like it's really interesting. But
no,
I think that I think that works so well in this movie's favor of just like, where are you going to hide from any of these people? There's just
hmm
nothing.
yep,
So I think that is, there's a lot in this movie that I think is visually really impressive in a way that I kind of wasn't expecting it to be. Um,
yeah.
and I think that kind of like desolate nature of the roads, I think really sells that.
I mean, I love the fact that, like, you go to the halls of justice
Mm-hmm.
and the signs are falling down. There's
It's
two cars
it's
parked
such a
in there.
good, like, the building is falling apart. One of the letters on the sign is falling apart. There's just nobody. There's nothing
Nobody. There's
there.
like four people in that building when Johnny is supposed to be taken to court,
Right.
and then like the judge and the lawyer show up to the cop to the halls of justice to say,
Right.
"Hey, nobody showed up. We ain't got a case, so you gotta let him go."
Yeah.
And it's such good world building because it's like, yeah, nobody's gonna show.
That's right.
Like
There's nobody here,
that.
man.
Yeah, nobody's gonna defend themselves. Nobody's gonna like. People don't trust institutions anymore because the
Right.
institutions have clearly failed them.
Right. Exactly.
And I love the fact that Fifi's like, okay, as long as the paperwork's clean, whatever happens on the road happens on the road.
Very
Like
much like
even
turning his back and washing his hands of it. Of just like, how am I supposed to know what's going to go out there on the big old road? Not my job.
uh
Yep.
I mean that because literally Johnny says, "Hey, bronze." I love the term "bronze" as an insult for cops. By the
Yeah.
way,
It's
it's
very
really
good.
good. Like we know who you are, and we'll see you out there on the road.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, it's like, yeah, okay. So they protect the tiny little bits of civilization that they can.
Mm-hmm.
They will stretch out and go into no man's land, which we see them do several times.
Yeah.
But when they're out there, that's problematic. Like
Yes.
that's when all bets are off.
Right.
That's when Max becomes Mad Max kind
Right.
of thing.
And I was kind of surprised in this movie that they don't push the no man's land being this lawless area as hard as I would expect maybe for a movie that'd be made today, of just like
Yeah.
skeletons being hung up and
It's just like 2 or 3 signs.
right.
And like spray paint on the road. It's like,
Right.
do not enter prohibited area. And it's like,
Right.
okay,
You'll get
we're
it.
going out we're going out there. Okay,
Yeah.
this is good. Um,
I feel we talked in the first part about the unfortunate stunt person that broke both of their legs in this film.
uh-huh.
Was it when they do a jump off of a motorcycle and the motorcycle is many feet away from their own body?
So I might be mistaken.
Okay.
The thing I'm thinking of might have happened in the second one. I think it might be the
Okay.
second one
'Cause if
I
somebody
didn't
didn't-
see the shot.
If somebody didn't break something on that jump in that stunt
Are you talking about the
specifically-
one into the field after Goose gets got?
Right, and like
Or
Goose,
the Goose getting got sequence?
yeah,
Which
there's
this is one of those sequences where like they're doing so much with so little because like
Yeah.
they show Goose with his jazz club. That's the Licorice Road reference for anybody who's curious.
Mhm.
Someone's tinkering with his bike,
Mhm.
and they do this great shot of like he gets on the bike, he puts his face mask on, he puts his helmet down, he's slowly getting going, he slowly pulls out into the main road, and he peels out he does the old tire spin thing.
Yeah,
The whole moment you're thinking, okay, when's it gonna happen,
right.
and then
When
there's
does it
like
explode?
3 minutes of him just going super fast through the middle of the countryside.
Yep.
And it's just this constant tension build of what's going to happen, when is it going to happen.
The music is freaking me out, man.
Yeah, and then his back tire locks up and he just goes woof straight into a field.
Just like the bike is down here and the stunt person's body is 6 feet above
So
the bike.
high.
It's just like, oh, that's okay. I hope you're okay. It's the 70s. Are you fine?
Yep.
Yeah, that was a heck of a scene. I feel like there's some pretty interesting riding stuff, but there aren't, like you said, the main meat of the kind of scenes are the bookends of the movie. I do have to say, the sequence where his wife and kid get hit, it's horrible. Like, it's an incredibly dark scene where it's like, oh yeah, movies used to go hard before everything was on Netflix.
And they teased it at the start too. Like, they teased at the start with the kid in the original chase where they go beside him.
Oh my god, what a shot.
In the middle of the road.
Oh yeah. Oh man. But like,
and again, they clearly just put a dummy in the middle of the road because you only see it for like 3 frames. But the tension building is real.
Yeah, it's very clearly like a child mannequin there, but like, but that shot where his wife and his kid get hit, but you see it from the other side, and you see the shoe and the ball.
Shoe and the ball.
The ball rolling all the way down this, like, they hold that shot forever, and I'm like, this is such an incredible shot. Like, I'd be high-fiving everybody if I got that shot on set of just like, we did it, pa 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 pa. Yeah, oh, the kid died. Yeah, but anyway, pa 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 pa. Like, yeah, we got the shot. Like,
it's really well done as well, because it's like it's a long shot of her running and the bikes coming behind. A very long shot of those. And to show how quickly they're catching up.
And it's like a really steady shot of her running towards the camera and them just like, and there's a lot of them just cooking towards her.
And then it does the quick cut to the rev, like someone revving, and the revs on the display on the bike shooting up.
Yep.
And then it cuts to the other shot where it's the other way as they ride away, and like you said, the shoe and the ball come down, and it's just like, oh boy.
Oh, it's such a good shot. There's a couple of shots. There's one really great cut too.
I will say, as part of that sequence though, I love the fact that I'm pretty sure he's barefoot. I think it's Gibson's best acting in this movie, where he's coming out, he sees May, he's like, what happened?
And she's crying.
And he's just barefoot sprinting down a highway.
He's booking it, dude. Like, he's
for a long
Tom Cruise
time.
Running. Like, he's moving. Like, that's a heck of a shot. I agree with you. I think that's probably some of his best stuff, of seeing his face fall as he realizes, like, oh, May's not crying because she got hurt. She's crying because of what happened down the freeway, and like quite a ways down there. There's also another great quick cut too, where I feel like it's only for like 2 or 3 seconds in some scene, where they cut to, I think it's Max's eyes as somebody gets into a crash as well. And that's another great.
It happens twice. It happens with Knight Rider's crash, and it happens with Tokota's crash.
Yes. The second one was the one I was thinking.
The eyes bugging out moment. It's
such a good.
And again, as another example, he kills Tokota without actually killing Tokota. He literally plays psychological games until he's dead.
Right.
Goose dying though, like, what did you think of? I like the fact that it's stages.
Yes.
Like, it's stages for Max. Like, he knows he's going down a bad path because of the job he does, and like he even mentions to Jesse, like, I'm away 3 days at a time.
Yeah.
And then I come back, I get a night at home, and then I'm off again for another 3 days.
Yeah.
To do the job. And how hard is that for Jesse? How hard is that for Max to deal with? And then Goose gets got in like the worst like hazing ritual you've ever seen from a biker gang, where like, I love the fact that Bubba doesn't think Johnny's got it, and Johnny doesn't have it.
No.
And he keeps saying as much
to
Tokota, and Tokota's like, you're not going to do it because Johnny's there for Johnny.
Yeah.
You're going to do it for me.
That's right. He is easily one of the best performances in this movie, of just this like quiet menace in this film, and like you said earlier, he has that presence. Like, he's this big
Hands on the
character.
face for that when you first meet him, and he puts his hands on that guy's face.
Yeah.
It's just like,
It's such a
it's a little
weird, like,
creepy.
you put his hand on his face, he's like, I'll do whatever you want. Tokoter's like, sounds great, welcome to the
Yeah,
gang.
whatever I want. What a great philosophy you have.
So it's so good.
It's such a good line.
And like you said, the writing is okay, but if you put it in the hands of somebody like that actor, he chews it enough to make it really interesting.
Hugh Keane's Byrne, I think is his name. He's got a triple decker name.
Yeah.
But I think he's fantastic. Like like I said, his presence is palpable.
Yeah.
And like you never quite know what he's gonna do, because in some scenes he seems to control the gang and like stop them from being as bad as they want to be. In other scenes he's just like, no, this couple who were watching us as we road rash this random stranger in this tiny little town, they ran away. Because they ran away, now we've got to go get them.
That's right. We have no choice but to chase them if they run. Let's go do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's just like, he just has that, the unsureness about what he's going to do next. Like, is he really going to harm Jesse and Sprague, or is he just going to, does he just want some ice cream? Which is the creepiest ice cream lick I've ever seen in my life, by the way.
And like the tension in that stuff of like Max and the guy from the roadside shop just being like hanging out talking about tires. It's like, oh, you go down and get some ice cream.
Oh, the mechanic.
Yeah. They'll love your business. And I'm like, don't, no, don't. That's
Did you immediately get a bad vibe from
yeah, and
him?
I'm like, that's not good. Nobody's here. Why would you go do that? And yeah, him just like,
it's like the sign says, speed is just about how much money you can spend.
That's right. That's right. But I like
I love the fact that he's admiring the red van, because you know Max is the one who put that together. Max is the one who tuned that engine, and that thing can book too, to be honest. Let's face it.
Yep. What else?
I mean, Bubba Zanetti's pretty good. He also gives Max the shot to the knee with the Luger, I think it is, pistol.
Yeah, that was...
That's a rough scene, dude.
Yeah, there's some stuff in the last bit of this movie, before we get to the, like, Max is the jigsaw from Saw. There's some brutal stuff where Max is just, like, dragging his one leg behind him back to the car, and I'm like, okay, yeah, you're really putting... Also, his name is Max Rockatansky?
Rockatansky, yes.
It's a hell of a name, man. That's like a $20 name.
Oh, yeah. Dude, that is a 70s hero name if you ever heard it.
100%. But, like, yeah, it's pretty interesting, though, because, you know, there's been a lot of talk, especially around action movies, after, let's say, Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift, where more and more big name actors are getting clauses, allegedly, about like, oh, I can't take more hits than this dude. I can't be seen getting
allegedly looking at you, The Rock / Jason Statham.
Yeah, exactly. Like, no one can shoot me. I'm so and so.
Yes, it's like, no, you're not your character. You're an actor. Do your job.
Right. It's sort of funny to just see them like, yeah, we're gonna shoot Max. We're gonna mess him up.
Destroy that leg completely.
Yeah, like just seeing him just get worked over is like, oh yeah.
And he gets his arm run over too. I forgot about that as well.
Yeah, that was pretty. That was a little rough.
It's rough, dude. Like, like this movie, it goes dark. But like, I will say, I love the performance of each of the three main villains for their own respective reasons. Tokota, the leader, I think is incredible. Like we've talked about, his presence, everything else. Bubba Zanetti being the legitimate psychopath, where he just doesn't care about anything and he just wants to do as much damage as he can.
Yep.
But also does it under the restraint of Tokota.
Right.
So it's like he's trying to reason with Tokota, and he's like, dude, he doesn't got it. He's not going to kill anybody. Like, he went full ham with a shotgun on a dummy, but he won't kill this cop who almost got him, essentially. Like, Bubba being this ice cold killer, and then Johnny being the wannabe sycophant. Like he is so well performed.
Yeah.
Like, you can't kill me for stealing a guy's boots, man. That's not why you're. That's not why you're gonna die, dude.
It's such
But
a good
yes.
shot too of him just being like, "Hey, hey, hey, I got the boots. Let's go. Let's do it." And
Mhm.
Max just stepping up behind him is just like, "Oh no, man, you messed up. You did it."
Yeah.
And them probably, I think, one of the more impactful scenes in this movie is the very last one where he sets up this little like saw trap and
hmm
says like, "All right, here's a hatchet. You can either cut through the handcuffs in 10 minutes or cut through your leg in 5 minutes.
If you're lucky.
Yeah, if you're lucky. Which one do you want to do? Bye." And
See
just
ya.
drives
And the fact
off.
that he drags him there by the ankle as well,
Yeah,
with those cuffs on, is just painful. Not great. No, thank you.
and it's
Please.
it's a really I think it's a really interesting shot too. Of just like, no, he really does have these handcuffs. Like he didn't put them on. There's just he's sort of getting trapped by this thing he already has. And I love that this is how I know like some 70s and 80s movies are so wild. It's just Max driving away and there's just a big explosion in the background and then the credits roll. It's just like the movie's just like, well,
Yep.
what, like dusting off its hands. Well, we did what we wanted to do. Script's over. The end. See you later.
So here is the funny thing: is I think I was I'm always shocked when I watch a movie from this time frame
Mm-hmm.
because I always forget the credits used to come first.
Yes.
Like you used to have a black screen with a bunch of credits, and then the movie would start, and then the
Or
rolling
like the
credits at the end.
orchestral suite coming while you show all the actors' names.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I love the logo for this, by the way. That
Yeah.
metal shiny logo at the start.
It's very cool.
This movie is a prime candidate for stick that logo at the end. Take it out at the beginning,
Yeah.
stick it at the end, because if it explosion, Max driving away with that stone cold look on his face,
Yep.
and then title right
Yeah.
there saying Mad Max, I think that's a prime example of, yeah, you probably would have done better with that at the
Yeah.
end, like right
It'd been an
here.
incredible like mic drop moment.
Yeah, because it's like, yeah, he was Max, now he's Mad Max. There's
That's
a
right.
difference.
That's right.
Like,
Now
not,
he's out for revenge.
yeah, this isn't the same Max you've known.
Yeah.
I will say one of my favorite shots in this is when he goes and gets the V8, the Interceptor, which we probably should talk about the Interceptor.
We
You don't
should,
see it a lot in this movie.
Yeah.
But like the shot where like Jesse's in the hospital, and again, toxic masculinity in primetime examples here. He literally talks about how to Jesse about how he struggles talking about his emotions.
Yeah.
He gives the whole dad story about how like he was so proud of him, but he never told him that.
Right.
And he's trying to break free of that whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
But Goose is dead, or Goose is dying / on the way out, and he
Mhm.
refuses to admit that it's Goose. Jesse is probably in a vegetative state.
Right. That scene, especially with Goose, where he refuses to admit that that's Goose, that was heartbreaking.
Yes, 100%. And it's again a good performance, I think, that moment
Yeah.
where he's just like, no, that's not Goose.
Yeah.
Because
some other dude.
Two scenes before that, Goose was like, that's me, Goose, twice as large as life, and or twice as big as life and twice as ugly, is the
Right.
line he says. And that actor has got so much charisma. Like he's always
Yeah.
smiling, he's always having a laugh and a joke. Him riding on a motorbike with a broken leg is just like, okay, I guess you're doing this now, Goose.
Yeah.
Like, it reminds me of Tony Hawk with his kid, where
Right.
he's like, oh, got his kid on the skateboard. And he's like, look, if you're giving me crap about taking my kid on a skateboard with me, my kid is safer on a skateboard with me than yours are in a car with you. Like, Goose is just that good when it comes to motorbikes that like
Right.
he can literally have a broken leg and still ride one. And I like
Yeah.
the fact that he becomes Max's like co-partner, like while
Mhm.
he can't ride his bike. But the scene after he leaves Jesse, like where he's just zoned out, and he opens that chest in his house and he pulls out his uniform. There's a great like solid camera shot where he's walking away from the camera in the underground garage, and it fades out, and then you hear the interceptor turn on and then
Yeah.
drive towards the camera, and
Yep.
it's just like, okay,
That's a
okay.
cool scene.
And it's stupid, but it's colors and cars as characters,
Yeah.
because at the start of the movie he's driving a bright yellow with red and blue trim car.
Hmm.
It's spotless, it's brand new, and then when everything goes downhill, he comes out in the black car,
Right.
like the solid black car with no colors, no nothing. It's just, this is all business at this
Hmm.
point. I love that car.
It's
It might not be the best car on the planet, but oh boy, does it look and sound incredible.
It's like I'm not a car guy. That's a mean car. Like in a very complimentary way. Like if you're going to have your main character kind of take a darker turn, you put them in this like really mean, like throaty sounding, aggressive car.
Yeah, and it just looks incredible.
Yeah.
Like the angles on it, it's very 70s. Don't get
Yes.
me wrong, it looks very 70s. But the angles on it, the appearance of it, like it's like it's like a gothic slash emo version of Smokey's car from Smokey and the Bandit.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Or the Bandit's car, I should no wait, whoever it is.
Yeah.
It's like that Trans Am is like a nice. It's black, but it's got the flame bird on it, and it looks like a good car. This looks like the goth version of that car, which is like, no, it's got lines, but it doesn't have pretty lines. It's got
Right.
aggressive lines. It's
Right.
got violent lines, and
I'm bumping some typo negative in this car.
yeah, when he reaches in when he first sees it and he hits that throttle to make the fan belt and the vent turn on,
Mm-hmm.
and it just roars at you, and you're just like, oh yeah, okay.
That's the good stuff.
That's the great stuff, especially
Yeah.
catching toe cutter. He just lifts that little thing up, and then the belt starts spinning on the
Mhm.
blower, and he's just like, yeah.
Oh man. Yeah,
I love that car.
it's so interesting because like this is a very cool movie, and I think its worst, not sin, but like the kind of the worst part about it is it's so uneven. Like we said, the bookends are really great and some really great action scenes and stunt, like probably not as much stunt work as I'm probably thinking, but like a lot of really great stunt work. But the middle of it is just like not boring. You said slow earlier, and I think that's probably the best descriptor of it is that it's just like it's just slower than I think I would have preferred this movie to be. And I think I lost Moon. All right, had some quick technical issues. Had problems with our vehicle. We're back. We're back here to wrap up this guy. Let's do ratings here real quick. IMDb has this at a 6.8 out of 10 with almost 250,000 reviews. Rotten Tomatoes has this at a 90% tomato meter and a 70% popcorn meter. That one, it's like old enough that the tomato meter like doesn't really count. But
yeah, but 90% is real high.
yeah, 70 reviews too, which is nothing to sneeze at. And Letterboxd has us at a 3.3 out of 5. So
I mean,
not unfair.
honestly, I'm probably a 4 out of 5 for this movie.
Yeah.
I think this is a great movie, considering what they have and what they did with what they have.
Right.
Like, this is easy at a 4 for me.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah, it's a really great film. Like I said, uneven, slow in the middle. Not bad. Certainly not like a boring watch or anything. Just kind of a little bit uneven. I wish it was a little bit. It's definitely one of the slower 90-minute movies we've watched. But I think that makes the kind of two bookends of the movie pop a little bit more. So
Yeah.
all right, that's the first Mad Max movie, first of our 5 episodes in this
keep
Mad
forgetting
Max
it's 5.
season. So thank you very much, everyone, for listening. We'll see you for the next one. Bye.
Bye.